I was reading an article probably a couple years ago, and I saw some questions that I printed off and I've used periodically in these types of sessions. So I'll start with the first. If you were a superhero, who would you be and why? These are actual interview questions that have been asked. If every time you entered a room, what would your theme song be? And why? On a scale of 1 to 10, how weird are you? Why did you choose that number? What was your best MacGyver moment? Some of you may not even know MacGyver. There, I just aged myself. But I never watched it. If you saw someone steal a quarter, would you report it? And if not, what dollar amount would you report? What do you think of those questions?
Different.
Unique.
Tell us a lot about a person.
Can tell you an awful lot about the person. And what are some things that can be told when you're asked those questions?
Integrity of the individual, their motivation.
Dignity.
Integrity, dignity, ethics, creativity, morality. How you think of yourself independently, how you think of yourself, how you think of others. Your confidence.
How honest.
Honesty. Shock and surprise. I got some reactions when I asked these questions. Imagine sitting in an interview and you hear that real question and your mouth is doing this. It happens. And it happens a lot. So the first thing you should walk out of here with is stop reacting, or at least overreacting to questions, and go in confidently. I can confidently answer that I don't know. I can get back to you. Or I can confidently answer a question based off of my opinions, or my thoughts, or my beliefs, or any one of those can come into play here. What we're going to talk about today is what interviewers want. We're going to talk about pitfalls within an interview. We're going to talk about behavioral or situational based interviewing. And then we're going to talk about how to banish those nerves when you're getting ready for the interview and you've got the shakes and your knees are going. I sat in an interview once and I was on the phones and I was going for an assistant manager position. It was in a telesales shop. And I sat there completely nervous, so I put my leg like this sitting down over my other leg. And it kept it from at least moving up and down. By the end of the interview, my leg fell asleep. And I got up to shake their hand and I fell because I was so nervous. If you allow your nerves to get to you, it can influence the decision that's made within the interview. I spoke to somebody yesterday who couldn't breathe between sentences, they were so nervous. And it was a phone interview. And they went, no, 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 no. I don't know what to think of that person because I couldn't understand what they were talking about because they were talking so quickly. They could have been the best person for the job, but I'll never know that because they let their nerves get to them. And as an interviewer, if I try to put myself, well, they must be nervous, I'm starting to make assumptions now, not on facts. An interviewer is going to make their decision off of facts. And if I start making assumptions, I'm putting myself into a difficult situation. Let the interview make the decision for you. Because there are two tools that are in here that have been very helpful in getting people ready for interviews. A SWOT. So if you look at a SWOT, it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You need to look at it and say, if I want this position, is it of interest to me? This allows you to start to do some of your homework. Use to do some analysis, use to help you to understand what you're getting yourself into. So if you say, all right, as I look at this position or I look at this role, What are my strengths that will help me to take this role? What are my strengths that will parallel and parlay into the role I'm looking for? Because now you're starting to make a match. By the end of this, you may even say, I was originally interested, but now I'm not. Because part of interviewing for the job is looking for the right job that's for you, not just taking the first one that comes along. I understand in desperate times come desperate situations, but if you have the luxury, and you have a little bit more luxury than you think, is try to find the right match. Because when you're happy and satisfied, you're going to blow that door off and you're going to be an incredible performer. So you want to put your strengths in here. Your experience level of things that can tie into what you're looking for. And you're going to get creative because you may be surprised that collections and sales do have a correlation. And analytics and those types of things. Weaknesses. So you look at the opportunity, or what are some of the weaknesses? Maybe it's a startup operation. And as a startup operation, you've only worked in previously established responsibility, and you're saying, I'm not sure if I want to be part of the startup, or maybe I lack the independence and curiosity to get this thing started. So maybe you start to figure out, but then you go through what are some of the weaknesses that are out there that you potentially can go in and fix. Now think about the interview as I identified by doing my homework these weaknesses, and now I can come in with the game plan that said, through my homework, I now know what your opportunities are within your line of business, and I can take the actions now. Here's my game plan. I interviewed for a job once, and I gave them a 3-page memo on all the things that I think I could do to fix their shop. You think that differentiated me? The O is within opportunities. So when you think about opportunities and threats, opportunities are the internal things that we can go in and say, what are the opportunities here? So maybe there's an opportunity for education. Maybe there's an opportunity on how we can deal with our customers a little bit better. What are some opportunities that are staring us in the face? Maybe there's a new regulatory environment that's out there, and maybe that's an opportunity for us to get more business. You can start thinking of it that way. Think of that more of the internal opportunities. The threats are the external opportunities. So somebody's going to come in and put in a new law that's going to take us away, or maybe site closure can come in. You know, those are the real threats that have been out there in the past. And you say, do I want to get into this business? It was interesting because I was offered a chance to interview for a job with an industry that was growing very quickly. And the threat I put in that box was it's growing too quick. Because at some point it's going to bubble out. And at some point, once you hire X number of folks, they're going to come in and say, now we're stabilized and now we're going to have to reduce. I actually didn't apply for the job. I went through. The SWOT's going to help you to determine is it the right mix for you and establish your game plan on what you want to do for the next document that's there. And some call it a multi-generation plan. Some call it a long-term vision. You can have anything you want on the left column. But when you are asked in an interview, what do you want to do on day one? You're going to have the answer. And it's not going to be what do I want to do on day one. It's going to be what I want to do on day 1, day 30, day 60, and day 90. Because on day 1, I'm going to introduce myself to everyone and meet everyone. There. What have I done in the interview that has really made me stand out from anyone else that's out here? But when you're able to come in with a 30 and 60 and 90-day plan that says, here's what I want to accomplish, wow. And I will not guarantee that you will get a job with this, but in all the times that I've taught this and people that have actually used this, it's been very few that haven't gotten a job. Because 1, you're differentiating yourself, and 2, it shows that you've done your homework, and 3, you have some answers on what you want to accomplish. Several of the team managers that are here use this. But it shows an organization to your thoughts and really shows that you've done this. If you spend a half hour on this thing or an hour on this, you'll really start to figure out what you can accomplish in the next job. What do interviewers want?
Confidence.
Confidence. Does the interviewer want the right answer? If you had a choice between the right answer or being confident, what do you think the interviewer wants? Confidence. doesn't mean confidently guessing. It means confidence in your answer, that you're confidently thinking it through. You're confidently talking through it. You're asking good, solid questions. It's a two-way dialogue. We're not looking for the perfect answer. Interviewers are looking for your thought process, looking for your trends, looking for your history, looking for your patterns, looking for the things that help you to put you on the table. We want you to talk about you. And that's one of the most difficult things that people have to do. What do you think one of the most difficult questions that is out there for people to answer? You'll be shocked. Answering questions about yourself. What is your greatest accomplishment? I don't know. Maybe when I got promoted, maybe when I did this. As soon as you said maybe, I think, I'm not sure, your credibility is going and it's moving down. It's all about building your brand, building your credibility, building your confidence. And you need to confidently come in and say, let me tell you what my greatest accomplishment is. Does anyone know if it is or not? Pick one out of the air. You probably have 14 of them from yesterday. Confidently give who knows if it's my greatest accomplishment? I don't know. It is at that very moment, so make it sound that way. Thinking quickly on your feet. I had an interview with somebody yesterday. And they said, I'm sorry. It's been 15 years since I've interviewed. I'm just not thinking very quickly. I know I'm not giving you the answers you want to hear. What do you think I'm thinking at this point? This is a phone interview. What am I thinking? When you're given a real challenge, can you step up to the challenge? I don't know. When you're under some pressure, how are you going to deal with it? If it's, I don't know, I'm not sure. But I once had an HR director, a friend of mine, come up and say, an interview is like a first date. You should be on top of the world. You should be dressed to the nines. You should be being spiffy and give everything you can, because we all know it's all going downhill from there. If this is the best I can give you in an interview and I think you might only be average, I'm only going to get average as your top. Do I want average? No, I don't. Your ability to think quickly on your feet, and it doesn't mean blur out the first answer that comes to you. It means think it through, but think quickly on your feet. You can buy some time during the interview by saying, let me think about that. Let me take you back to a time where, and you can start giving some answers. Buy yourself a little bit of time during that, but it doesn't mean blurt out your answer, and it doesn't mean spend 3 minutes thinking about it. We want you to think quickly on your feet. Your ability to be clear and concise. Again, I know I'm giving you examples from the last 2 days, but I've done some interviews and I've seen every one of these. I felt like I was pulling teeth from this guy this morning in the interview. Well, here it is. You're going to keep answering? Yeah, I'm done. Done with that answer. That's pretty much what his answer was telling me. So I had to probe. I had to ask more questions. I had to ask follow-up, which means your answers are too short and terse. You're not giving me the answers I want to hear or need to hear, or elaborate, or give me any examples to sink my teeth in. But then you have the opposite of that, where you're rambling on and on and on and on, and then I hit mute as the interviewer and say, all right, here we go. Clear, concise. When you answer these questions, make sure that you're answering enough that there are good, solid examples behind it and support to these answers that are out there. Give me some examples of independent thinking. If someone was to say to you, give me a time where you had to think independently, give me some answers. Okay, where you had to make an executive decision, where you had to take the lead, where you had to do something possibly outside of the policy. I had, again, this person from this morning kept saying, well, I was a contributor on the team. So I finally asked the question point blank, give me an example when you've been the leader. And he said, well, when my manager gave me this project, you've now told me all you do is follow. And you haven't given me any examples where you've been the leader. You want to be able to balance both of those. It's good to be a follower, but you also have to show your leadership skills. What is the difference between a problem solver and a problem dumper?
One takes ownership, the other person passes it along.
Yeah, so it's, I'm going to be in my manager's office all the time saying, oh, we've got this problem going on. It's a fire drill. Here is the problem. So we escalate the problem. We never offer any solutions to it. You may offer options A, B, and C, and your manager might come in and offer you option D. That's okay. But when we're talking about, and we'll get into it with behavioral based or situational based, we're going to say, give me a time when, or give me an example when this has happened. And so you want to think about times where you've solved problems and offered a solution. And one of the questions I asked today is, give me a time when you had a great idea and it didn't work out. Why would I ask something like that?
Shows your attempt. Not afraid to step out.
So it shows you're breaking out of your comfort zone. It shows that you're willing to push the envelope a little bit, not necessarily being the status quo. And it also shows you can learn from your mistakes. I think a lot of times we're so fearful of putting that out there. You want to show enough vulnerability to the interviewer that you have made mistakes, but let me tell you the times that I've learned from it. I've been told many times that I have poor communication skills. That's one of the first things I'll talk to them about in the interview is these are the things that I've done to improve my communication skills. There's also a difference in how you communicate moving from a job to a new one and how you communicate that. A lot of times we talk about leaving the previous job. So why are you applying for this job? And some answers come out, well, I don't like my manager. I don't like my job. I'm quoting, by the way. Yes. And there are people that are saying, I will do everything I can to leave this job versus coming to you. Your angle and your answers need to reflect that you want the job you're applying for, not leaving the one that you're in right now. Positive attitude. Seems pretty basic and pretty benign. I've talked to more people than not that have either let their nerves get to them, or they were having a bad day, or they were just kind of sitting around and their answers were, yeah, uh-huh. They lacked enthusiasm, they lacked the attitude. If you're not coming across in an interview with a solid attitude, again, you're giving me the best of you, and this is what you can give me for your attitude. If you're showing negativity against your previous employer, or against your, even if you don't like your previous employer, it shouldn't come across in the interview. It's maybe you use terms such as, there was lack of room for growth. But even in that, I've heard people say, well, it's a family-run business and I'm not part of the family, so therefore I wasn't going to get any further. Again, quotes. I walk away saying you're just negative about the other person. You're going to be negative about this company at some point. Leopard never changes its spot. When it comes to taking your past history, this is a very difficult thing for people to do. My suggestion is, as you're doing your homework, as you put your strengths and your opportunities down on a piece of paper, and you know yourself better than anyone else that is out there. But part of that should be the skills that you have. And remember, if you were in the resume writing discussion, we talked about hard skills and soft skills, and you want to mix both here. The soft skills are great attitude, people person, good problem solver, good communicator, good leader. You still haven't told me a whole lot. Over here are the hard skills. Analytical, certified to do these things, have a credit, lending authority of such and such, and now you start putting these skills down. And then you start to take the parallel and how to parlay them in to your new job. So let's go back to the example of collections. If you are applying for a sales job, how would you talk about the collections experience that you have into a sales job?
Overcome objectives.
Okay, so I can overcome objections.
Selling them on something that they initially didn't think they wanted.
Customer doesn't think they want or need. And we're able to influence, command, have a discussion. Good. What else?
Sell yourself.
Sell yourself. So they're going to do this because of our one-on-one relationship that we have. So maybe I'm showing my ability to be customer-centric. Persuasion skills, listening skills, communication skills. All of these are needed in the sales environment. Now let's talk about if you're going for something for research or analytics. Now from the analytics, you have attention to detail, you have account recognition, you have a decision point every single time you take a phone call. Do you transfer it? Do you handle it yourself? Do you escalate it? Your servicing options. You're not given a playbook that says you have to do A, B, and C. Sometimes you can break out and say, hey, I have an exception here. So maybe you have some exceptions that are out there. Thinking on your own, thinking beyond what the policy tells you. So now you're starting to take the role that you're in right now and being able to tie it nicely into something you're going for. You can make a tie for anything. Trust me. You have to think it through. And your time to do that is through your homework, not in the middle of the interview of, oh man, I was in collections. I don't know how it relates to sales or credit or service. The answer is it absolutely unequivocally does. Now let's talk a little bit about the Q&A. How important is the do you have any questions piece at the end of an interview?
You should always have questions.
Okay, why is it very important?
If you're interested in the job and you're interviewing them as well as them interviewing you as far as a fit.
Demonstrates
Another
interest.
question.
It demonstrates interest in the company that you're applying for as well, to show them that you're interested in the position, you're excited about what they are doing, as well as showing that you know what the company does and have a possible vision of where it could go, or your ideas for that as well.
So I've done my homework. What do you think is the strategic vision of your area? It's not a black and white answer. So they showed their interest in me. And so now when you're showing interest in the interviewer, now I'm engaged in the process now. Because it is a two-way dialogue. And when you're asked a question in an interview, your job is not to answer and then sit tight and wait for the next question. Your job is to make this into a two-way dialogue. Wouldn't it be great to not sit there and listen to the question, answer, question, answer, question, answer? Wouldn't it be nice to say, wow, that's an interesting question. Here's my answer. I'd love to hear what your opinion is on that. Or with the recent economic downturn, it's starting to come back up, what do you think about that? Now your question shouldn't be, how is my question? Or how did I answer your question? How well did I do? Am I going to get hired? Because now you're putting pressure on the interviewer, and yes, every one of those are quotes. But what you want to be able to do is ask the questions that create this dialogue. When we talked about the resumes, we talked about making your story come alive. And you need to make this about you. You need to be confident enough to talk about you. But what's interesting is I have been given a resume, or along with a binder that's this thick, that has certificates and recognition and performance appraisals. Well, you're handing it to me in a 30-minute interview. What do you want me to do with it? And a lot of people say, well, it's my story. Bring your story to life as if the resume is not even there, or that binder is not even there. You have to be willing to talk about yourself and your accomplishments, and handing me a binder is not going to get it done. For the management development program, when I was in Delaware, I'd been with the company for 2 years. 2 years in the company, management development, they took 15 people for the management development program. Guess what number I was? 16. And I got my feedback. And they said, you're not going to get this job. And I said, but I was a top performer. I was given these special projects. I did all of these things. And they said, you didn't tell us that in the interview. I said, that's because it's all sitting on my resume. I said, we didn't read it. They didn't think they had to because we were internal. That's the point. Make zero assumptions. And when it comes to the line of questioning, on the give and take of the question, make no assumptions that you're going to be asked the question. If there's something within an interview you feel compelled to let somebody know, let them know. Find a way to integrate it into your answer in a clear and concise manner. But find a way to do it so you're not rambling on, but you're finding a way to connect. So someone might ask me, what's your biggest challenge you've had to overcome? I would come back to my communication skills. And I would say, these are the things that I've done and the reviews that I've gotten saying I needed to be more clear and concise, I needed to know the audience, and then here are the things that I did to fix it. And I would find a way to say I was Toastmaster of the Year last year. It's not bragging if it's a fact. You have to be willing to talk about those facts. Do I go around on the street saying, hey, look at me, look what I did? No. But when you're in an interview, you should say, hey, look at me. But not the way that you're just constantly bragging, but you're bringing subtle facts in from your resume because those facts are what will get you the next job. So let's talk about what some of the pitfalls are. But one of the biggest ones is lack of confidence. Your lack of ability to want to talk about yourself. And the next one is shock of a question. So if someone was to say to you, let's talk about one of the questions we had. If you were a superhero, what would you be and why? Anybody? Spider-Man. Mighty Mouse. Why?
Because when I watched the movie Spider-Man, I liked how he could make his web high up in the sky like a hammock anywhere and see the stars.
Okay, so he can fall asleep on the job anywhere. That's perfect. Spider-Man has something that we don't, and so you're using that skill that he has that we want to possess. You said Mighty Mouse?
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Well, because he looks small and relatively can be pushed over or stepped on, but he's surprisingly strong and he can lift houses.
Okay, so Mighty Mouse, small, doesn't look strong, looks weak. You are making your own perceptions and stereotypes about this person, but yet he blows them all out of the water. When you get these types of questions, you may or may not. Someone may come across the table and say, sell this pen to me. That's been known to happen. And yes, you probably all got it.
Oh, I hate to do that. Yes, we did that.
And then the shock leaves your face, and then you find a way to answer it. The answer isn't the Spider-Man or the Mighty Mouse. The answer is your reaction, your ability to elaborate, your ability to think it through. If you could be any tree in the world, what kind of tree would you be? A weeping willow. Because I cry. No, I don't. Why a weeping willow? Let's stay with that one.
Well, probably you have to put your weeping willow away from your home, away
Okay.
from wells, because they can grow through any walls.
Okay, so I want to be a weeping willow because I can break through any wall that's out there. That's a great answer. Do you memorize these? I'll be a pine one day, I'll be an oak another day, I'll be a palm tree another day. Some people try to do that. But again, remember, you want to go back and figure out how can you think quickly on your feet and know yourself better than anyone else out there to be able to answer these questions. Is there a right or a wrong answer? stop thinking there is one. So if you come in with confidence, well thought out answer, I'm making it up as I go along. I can be any tree you want. Ask me. I'll be a different tree. I'll be an oak today because I want to stand strong and tall, and I want my acorns to fall off so I can then start teaching others. I can be a weeping willow because I want to be nimble and flexible because this business model is constantly changing. I'll come over here and be a tall white pine so I can be cut down for Christmas. Because it's evergreen. No matter what the weather is, I'm going to survive. And I'm going to get through this, and I'm steadfast. I just made all of those up. I didn't memorize any of those. But your ability to come in confidently and give a short, clear, concise, strong answer is what the interviewer is looking for. So when we talk about tell me a little bit about yourself professionally or tell me what you're doing right now or in your past role, one of the pitfalls is regurgitating your job responsibilities and not what you've accomplished. Remember, the facts are the things that are going to tell your story that gets you the job. And if the facts are, well, I've been on the phones, and I collect customers that are past due, and I do this, you're just regurgitating job responsibilities, and you haven't told me anything about you that you've accomplished. You've talked to me about the role and the responsibilities, but you haven't told me about you. Talk about you and the things that you've been able to accomplish. How many times have you been top performer? Have you achieved incentive? How many times have you been listed among the top performers or recognized? These are the things that start to bring out things about you that you've accomplished. Another pitfall when it comes to interviews is trying to think what I want as the interview and try to guess what that is and try to answer it the way you think I would want it answered. Did I just lose you? Well, if I wanted to answer it the way Tom wanted it, then I would answer it this way. Stop. Be yourself. Answer it the way that you should answer it, confidently, clearly, concisely, elaborate, have strong supporting information that goes along with it, but be you. Because when you finally get the job, you want to be able to know exactly what you're walking into, and we want to know who we're getting. We want to get the real you in an interview. Don't be fake. Now, you're going to have a little bit more polish in the interview probably, and clean yourself up a little bit maybe, but you really want to be yourself in the interview and do everything you possibly can to get there. So what is behavioral-based or situational-based interviews? We're not going to come in now with the traditional question of saying, tell me about yourself. Tell me about where you want to be 3 years or 5 years from now. You might get that question periodically, but it's not the old traditional questions a lot of the places now are asking. Tell me a situation you've been in where ... Tell me about a situation with an irate customer and how you had to deal with it. Why are these questions being asked? We're looking for that reaction, so that shock. I'm not sure how to answer this, so I just won't. Or I'm going to give you a yes-no question when it wasn't a yes-no question. So it's that shock.
Remember the situations.
Okay. I want you to be able to think back. Somebody, again, answered me in a behavioral-based question that I asked. Well, I'm sorry I have to take you 10 years back into my career. Again, their credibility just went from here down to here. Because now they're apologizing. I don't need to know when it is from 10 years ago or 5 years ago. That's not the point of the question. The point is, can you think clearly? Can you do it confidently? Can you give me a time when? Because what is that question trying to get within the answer? Or how I responded.
What the outcome was.
What the outcome was.
Your ability.
Your ability to handle a situation like that, and your ability to communicate a situation like that. You're trying to get the person to see, are they going to be shocked? Are they going to be able to react to a stressful situation? Are they going to be because a leopard never changes their spots. The interviewers are sarcastic and skeptical, and we don't believe anything until we hear it from you. But if you tell me about a situation where you've had to deal with a customer who was irate, or you had to deal with a teammate who wasn't playing well in the sandbox, or you told me about a situation where you had to get direction from your manager, or you only stuck to the policy, now you're starting to tell me a little bit about yourself. You're telling me about your thought process. You're telling me about your patterns. You're talking to me about your trends. You're talking to me about your history. You're bringing your history alive. And a lot of people have difficulty answering these types of questions because they're saying, I can't think of a situation like that. And I have heard that answer. I don't know. I guess let me think about it. Well, as soon as you say, I guess, I'm not sure, I don't know, your credibility is taking its hit. Have you done your homework? Have you been able to go in and probe? Have you looked at the mission statement? Have you looked at the core values? Have you looked at what this company is all about? Do you even know what the position is? What are some good questions to ask in an interview as the interviewee?
What they like about their job.
Okay, what do you like about your job? How well does the team get along? What are some of the biggest challenges you've been up against this past year? Where do you see yourself strategically next year? How high is the turnover? That's a great question. Do you see any outside influences such as regulatory agencies that can influence what we have coming down the pipe? These can go on and on and on. And there's no set number that you have to ask. You don't even have to ask a question, but it shows your intelligence, it shows your curiosity. Give me a situation where you had to deal with a difficult customer. Or even a simple question that says, what happens when a customer asks for your manager? What do you do?
Try to de-escalate them.
Okay, so you're saying I go ahead and de-escalate. I'm trying to make the attempt to resolve the situation, and sometimes it's not going to always work out and may end up with the manager, but it's showing your independent thinking. I've had people say, well, the policy tells me I need to send it to my manager. So the response is, I'm probing, I'm being curious for you, the customer, and if I do that well enough, I may have your answer here for you. So I'm going to diffuse, de-escalate, I'm going to spend some time with you, but what's that telling the interviewer? I'm independent in my thinking.
Take ownership.
I am a problem solver. I am taking ownership of this. So now you're saying the right things that tell more about you. So maybe your policy dictates something, but I didn't hear anywhere in your response that the policy dictated that's how you had to do it or your checklist you had to follow. It was, let me tell you how I would handle it. And it became an I statement, and that's okay to say in an interview. Who is your competition in the interview? You. That's it. The questions that I've gotten in an interview is how many other people have applied? Who else has applied? I've had asked of me in an interview, well, such and such is also interviewing, would you hire them? My response has always been, I would hire me. And let me explain more. Those questions are irrelevant, looking for a shock, looking for that reaction for you to come in and say, I don't know. You are your only competition. If you have done your homework, you know that this is a right fit for you. If you have done your homework, you know you have the skills to do this job. You have to believe that. You have to truly believe that you are the person for this job, not just because there's an open. Truly believe it. And when you truly believe it, then all of a sudden, it comes across that way, and now you know if the competition is only you, you're the only one you have to worry about. You probably sleep a little bit better at night. Let's go back to what we did on the resumes. What makes you special? What makes you different? What are those skills that are out there? Not just I've been on the phones, I've been in a leadership position, I've been able to do this. What are the things that make you special? Do you do some extracurricular activity? Do you volunteer? Are you a landlord? Do you do some things that say, I have to balance life and work? I can't ask you about family. I can't ask you about, do you have a spouse? Do you have kids? But can you come out and say, yeah, just like on my resume, I run 20 miles a week. I have a family. I have stability. Sure. You just can't ask me. But why can't I answer it for you and add that in? Well, as a father of 3 children, and then I can go in and say, here's what I've had to do. You know, here are some situations I had to deal with when I volunteered on my kids' soccer team. When I was a ref, I had to deal with an irate parent. How to overcome objections, stability, balance, work and life, all that came out in one sentence. Those are the things you want to think about when you are your only competition. Have your plan laid out. And even if you're not going to share this plan, your SWOT, or your multi-generation plan, or your long-term vision, you at least are showing your homework. And I would tell you, do you, just like the binder, throw it in somebody's face and say, here, look at this? No, but you should have a folder with you, or if you're doing a phone interview, have it ready to email. Because wouldn't it be nice to come up in a conversation of, well, what do you want to do on day one? Well, actually, I think what I do on day one is introduce myself to the brand new team. But I also, in doing my homework for this interview, have laid out my 30, 60, and 90-day plan. Would you like to see that? All of a sudden, I can see you've done your homework. All of a sudden, you're differentiating yourself from everyone else that's out there. When it comes to mock interviews, and there's some pieces in here you can refer to mock interviews, but I've found a lot of people are trying to memorize their answers. They're trying to say, okay, when I'm asked what I want to be when I grow up, what do you want to do 3 to 5 years from now? They say, okay, I'm going to memorize my paragraph worth of an answer. Think 3. Doesn't matter. There isn't a right or wrong answer to most answers that are out there. Don't memorize it. But know yourself well enough, because you've done your homework, you've done your SWOT analysis, you've done your long-term vision, you've broken it down into your strengths and opportunities, you know yourself better than anyone else that's out there. If someone was to say to you, what are your 3 weaknesses? What are they? Can anybody give me one of your own weaknesses? Thank you for being here.
Too sensitive.
Too sensitive. So how do you turn that too sensitive around that your weaknesses become a strength?
Passionate.
So what's interesting is in my previous review, I was identified as, in past years, I've been identified as being too sensitive. But what I realized was that that was actually one of my strengths. And what I've been able to do with that sensitivity is use my listening skills and my compassion for people to understand who they were, and that allowed me to work better with my peers, or as a leader, understand that individual at their level, not just a blanket statement, and I've used that compassion now as a strength. So anytime you are asked for an opportunity or a weakness, it is always a strength. You have to tie it back into a strength. It was interesting. I remember the first time my father, who's been in the personnel business, he was a personnel director for Sears for 25 years, asked me that question in a mock interview. And I said, here's one, here's one, here's one. You only asked for 3, but I'll give you 7 more if you want. And it became a checklist, and then it was, here are all my weaknesses. It's the same thing with problem dumping and problem solving. When someone asks for your weaknesses, you're talking about really what your strengths are, your ability to overcome your own opportunities to turn them into strengths. Make your answer that way. Thank you very much. Be yourself. Some people try to come out and they try to be happy and enthusiastic, and I'm the guy for this job, and you should really have me, but this really isn't who I am. It's going to come across that way. It's fake. It was interesting. I know I'll correlate a Toastmasters contest that I was interviewing, because in reality it is an interview to some extent. It was what they call table topics. It's an impromptu 1 to 2 minute speech on a question you don't know ahead of time. So I came in with all this stuff. I'm confident. I've done my homework. I'm going to give you the answers that are out there. And the question they asked was, you're given $750,000. You get to keep $250,000 of it, and you can donate the other $250,000 to 2 charities of your choice. Now, I had just given, over the last couple of years, and the same audience was there, a speech on rescuing animals from the Humane Society. The Japanese tsunami had just hit. And I had just given a speech about a buddy of mine who had cystic fibrosis. There are 3 right there. I came in, somehow got this thought in my head that I was funny. I'm not funny. And I tried to give this answer about my children and taking them to college, and it went down some path. It wasn't who I was. I was trying to be funny. I'm not naturally funny. And it wasn't who I am. And if I had just taken a step back and said, here's who I am, I would donate that money to the cystic fibrosis, to the tsunami, to animal rescues. These are the things that are fresh in my mind. This is who I am. You would have felt that passion. You would have been able to relate. You would have been able to resonate. In an interview, it's the same way. That interviewer has the same emotions you have. They laugh, they cry, they think, they analyze, they get nervous, they're confident. Be who you are. Be yourself. And when you start to live in the present, say, I'm never going to get this moment again in this interview, and make it the best of who you are, your nerves might go down a little bit. Now, a couple of things that you can work on. Because same as it would be for public speaking, as it is for an interview, because that's really what it is. It's public speaking. So mentally, you have to get yourself prepared. So how do you prepare yourself mentally for this?
Do your homework.
All right, so if you do your homework, you're going to come in just a little bit more prepared, saying, I know this, I've got this. So your nerves are going down just a little bit. What else?
Have somebody ask you random questions that an interviewer would ask and answer them as honestly as you could.
Okay, so you can do the mock interviews to get yourself prepared. Again, don't memorize, but get yourself used to the give and take. And maybe during that you try some things that you haven't tried in the past. So instead of just answering it and waiting for the next question, maybe you try to make it into a 2-way dialogue so you get a little bit more comfortable with transitions. So you can be who you are. It's like talking to somebody on the phone or talking to your manager or just talking to anybody. The interviewer wants that 2-way dialogue most of the time. The other thing I tell you is stick to your routine. A lot of times you say, I have the big event today, I'm going to do this. Let's try to stick to as much of a routine as possible, because mentally, if you're not thrown off, or if you eat this for breakfast every morning, you go running every single day, that is going to settle your mind a little bit. A lot of times we say, today's a big day and I'm going to do something special or something different. And then all of a sudden you get to the interview and you're slightly thrown off. Physically, for you coffee drinkers, I apologize. Try to stay away from your caffeine so you're not all jittery. A little bit of caffeine helps you think a little bit sharper, but no alcohol. Do I have to say that? I'd say try to exercise before you go. What you want is the blood moving and that you feel good for this. You have to treat it. It is a big event, and you want to give your best. You almost have to treat it as if you're standing at the starting line, and you want to give it everything you can. You want to stay within your routine leading up to it, but physically you want to be able to get the blood flowing, get yourself relaxed, and that includes all those desk exercises you learn. It really truly means this. I've given too many presentations where I was sitting there in the audience and they say, okay, it's your turn to go up for your speech contest, and I've gone up and I've done it and I've gotten feedback of your shoulders were stiff, you were uptight. And I was like, but I was having fun, I was doing it. I said, no, you were uptight. And it's because physically you just find yourself kind of contracting a little bit. When you do this and get yourself loose, I've been doing that before the last couple of contests, and that feedback has gone away. And they said, you're no longer just tense. I mean, maybe I'm worked up and excited to be here, but it's coming across from a relaxed body. Your body is going to tell a lot about who you are, and if you're tense and if you're not loose, your face may be showing that. That shows that shock we've talked about avoiding. What you want to do is build the habits of, if you get intimidated easily by someone, then start having those conversations early. Start to get some mock interviews. And then in the mock interviews, do me a favor. Don't ask for question, answer, question, answer. Ask for some questions I think I'm going to get in an interview. It is, tell me what I can do, and make it more about the how side of the interview and not the what. So when you set up the mock interview with this person, make sure that you are setting it up and setting the expectations of what you want to get out of it. I don't want to get to a point where I'm just memorizing answers, because the chances of having even one of those questions come up in an interview is slim to none. But what I want to get to is the comfort level of being able to answer confidently. So I like your direction you're moving, just don't work on the timing so it's not a week before, because now all of a sudden you're throwing yourself out of routine, because now you're jamming. It's like jamming or cramming for a test. You don't want to cram, because that just adds pressure. When you do it and you build the right habits, you're in good shape.